Today I'm going to show you how to make and use my go-to chisel anytime I'm working with sheet metal, as well as a lot of other metal cutting applications. Hi, I'm Dennis Frechette and welcome back. When I started working with sheet metal, joining pieces together and, that kind of thing where you need a mortise and tenon joint, I started using all kinds of chisels because that's, how I thought it worked. I made chisels that were thin to cut out the slots and that kind of thing. And as time went on, I just started refining my techniques more and more, usually as those thin chisels started to break and I was forced to use something else. I just started gravitating towards chisels that were a lot sturdier and a lot easier to make, and that's pretty well where I am now. I have one chisel that I use for just about everything. It's really easy to make, and I have a drawer full of chisels that I don't use anymore, really, except for the odd occasion when they do fit that one particular job. So that's what I have for you today. I hope it helps you out. I'm going to be using a short length of coil spring today to make the chisel. Doesn't have to be any specific length, but it should stick out of your hand a little bit on either side. I always have a number of these already cut so that when I need a chisel, I just need to finish straightening them out and hammer in the cutting edge. At this point I'm ready to heat treat, and here I'm demonstrating why I do not rely on color alone to get to non-magnetic. With all the lights on, I wouldn't be able to tell this color at all. It's quite a bit brighter with all the lights off, but that isn't really a workable solution. If you haven't seen my video on how to make your own tools, I'll have a link for that in the description. Here you can see the hardened edge. There's a little bit of scale popping, but it's not excessive, and the edge is glass hard. If I had quenched this chisel at a hotter heat, I'd still have a glass hard edge, but the internal grain structure would be a lot larger, and that would give me a weak cutting edge regardless. The next step in the process is to draw the temper. The heat treating made the tool brittle hard, but it's too brittle to use. It would simply shatter if you tried to cut any metal with it. So what I have to do is reintroduce some heat to the steel and watch how that heat affects the colors that are going to be produced on a polished surface of the tool. So I'm applying the torch further back. You'll see the heat every once in a while coming into the shot, but I'm trying to build up some heat in the main part of the chisel, and I'm going to let that heat work its way to the tip. And as it's doing that, you'll see different colors starting to show up. These colors are very specific and they occur always at the same temperature. So if you go about this process slowly, you can watch the slow graduation of colors developing. And if you stop the process at the right time, you can pretty much dial in the temper color almost to a degree. Now, this process is not what you would use if you had to heat treat a lot of chisels, but if you're working with a new steel, or if you only need one chisel, a torch is a good way to go about it. If you're working with a new steel, you have to heat it with a torch because you need to test to find out which temper color works best for the particular application that you're going to be using for this tool. Once you have that color, you can look up that color on tempering charts, find out what the actual temperature is in Fahrenheit or Celsius, and then you can go to something like a kitchen oven or a toaster oven or something like that and just preheat the whole batch up to that temperature. Here you can see the steel just starting to turn into a very, very light straw just ahead of where my pointer is. This light straw color is the very first temper color that you see, and it does mean that the steel is starting to soften slightly, but it is still extremely brittle. So at this point, I'm just going to keep applying the heat a little bit at a time, just enough to keep the colors moving. And I'm just going to wait until the straw color turns into just a very, very light browny red. That color will leave me with a very hard edge, but it's still tough enough to take some hammering. If I let more heat get to the tip, the colors will darken and I'll gain a lot of toughness, but I'm going to sacrifice some of the cutting edge. So it's a balancing act between making the tool hard enough to have a good cutting edge, but still flexible enough to take the abuse that it needs to take while you're doing your work. Now that I have the color that I'm looking for, I'm going to quench the tip of this tool in water so that it will stop the progression of the colors. Next, I'll quench the rest of the tool and I'll take it over to the grinder. And here's another look at the fully tempered chisel ready for grinding. Here you can see how I've laid out the location of the opening by drilling a series of holes. The holes do two things. They not only remove a lot of the material, but they also give me the exact location of the hole on both sides of the plate. I grind these chisels with a single bevel, so they look pretty much like a woodworking chisel. The flat face is sitting right on the top of the jaws of the vise, and that gives me a nice straight line on the outside of the opening, and the bevel is pushing up into the waist. I don't use the 60-degree bevel that you would put on a standard cold chisel. I grind these bevels a little bit thinner because I'm driving them with very light hammers and I'm doing very little work with each pass. So the thinner bevel allows them to penetrate into the steel better with a lot less distortion. From here, I just repeat the process on the other side of the opening, and then I do the same thing on the other side of the bar. And once I've completed all four edges, the waist is pretty much ready to fall out on its own. To create the tenon that's going to fit inside of that opening, I just lay out the width of the tenon and I just take the same chisel that I've been using to shear off the waist. And here you can see how the two pieces fit together. I did cut on the wrong side of the lines when I cut out the tenon, so you can see it's a little bit small for the opening, but you'll see in a minute how that is just going to disappear when I do the actual riveting for the tenon. The last step in the process is to hammer over the end of the tenon to create a rivet, and in this case I'm using a very small cross-peen hammer. The idea, of course, here is to drive the metal back down onto itself to create a rivet head, not simply to bend it over. So the narrow edge of the cross-peen really provides a really small point of contact, so it allows the metal to distort quite a bit, and there's still enough metal around it to support the tenon and preventing it from bending over. So this is why this chisel has become one of my favorites. It has a pretty thin profile, so it'll get in some tight spaces. It can take some fine cuts, but when I need it to, it can really do some heavy work.